Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info coming at you from the conclusion of the Cup Series race at Atlanta, and indeed the NASCAR weekend at the revamped Atlanta. I have plenty to talk about for the show tonight here from the racing that we saw today. Already unofficially, William Byron, your race winner today, and Noah Gragson unofficially with his first last place finish of the season. In fact, a weekend where all three races had a driver score their first ever last place finish in the series. That will be certainly something to talk about as well. The last lap pass attempt by Christopher Bell did not go through. He was given a white and red line penalty there to drop him to the last car on the lead lap, giving Ross Chastain his third consecutive finish of third or better as he continues to absolutely pound on the door of trying to get his first career victory. A very good step taken towards that today. Bell's penalty also hands Corey LaJoie his career best finish. He had originally tied his best finish from sixth at Daytona in 2019 with Go Green Racing, now showing him in the fifth position. Fantastic job for both LaJoie and the entire Spire Motorsports organization. As it happens, I was actually wearing my Dustless Blasting BK Racing shirt yesterday there. I probably should have saved that for today if I knew he was going to do quite that well. Chase Elliott in sixth, Buescher seventh, Truex eighth, Logano after several incidents, as well as Chastain's finishing in the ninth spot. Bowman in the 10th spot there. But again, unofficially your last place finisher being Noah Gragson. Got to give a call right off the bat here, as we always talk about the Cup Series action first. Great run for Greg Biffle and the New York Racing Team. The best ever finish by John Cohen's effort there, finishing in the 20th spot there. Biffle getting a good run there, bouncing back after the last two races had been felled by fuel pump issues. It's good to see that they apparently did not have such issues this time around. Josh Bilicki showing in the 16th spot. Great run for him as well. Not quite a career best for him, but certainly his best in Atlanta for sure. And many other competitors also having a good run there. Even Haley and Wallace, who were involved in that last accident there across the stripe, still finishing in the 11th and the 13th spot. So doing things a little bit different here on this evening show, because I'm sure many people tuning in here, both those of you who are regular viewers, and if we have newer viewers in here today, are certainly going to want to know what the heck I was thinking yesterday in my concerns about the broadcast. And I do stand by that. And I think my concerns about the racing itself were not entirely assuaged by what we saw today, although I think today's broadcast, personally, was significantly better. I think it was startling how clear the differences were. So I'll certainly be talking about that this evening on the show here too. So after just we'll talk more about the Cup, Xfinity, and truck races in general, but I think it's going to be very difficult to actually talk about those without talking about the broadcast issues there. So as I tweeted yesterday, in the closing stages of the Xfinity race, I had some people, questioning whether it was earlier in the event, but it was actually towards the end of the Xfinity race, which was after the Truck Series race, and had a pretty good taste of how both the broadcast and the racing had performed there. I had tweeted, this is not good racing. This is not good broadcasting. This is complete and utter garbage. I hate being this negative, but I am beyond angry at this point. I do stand by that. I'm not as upset today, I can tell you, as I was yesterday. I literally had to delete profanity from that tweet before posting it. And in retrospect, that was probably for the best. I had some other choice words. That was very upsetting on Saturday for people, particularly in the broadcast aspect. I will admit I wasn't as upset at the racing as I was about the broadcasting, but the racing kind of brought about, I felt, a lot of the frustrations with the broadcast there yesterday. I don't know what on earth was going on there, but the thing is, and it was kind of interesting. It's created some interesting debate here, which I'm glad it has, because it's been an issue. The broadcasts in general have been a passionate subject for me for a very long time. I think there's some people that are maybe a bit newer to my feed that are wondering why especially after the last place is settled, which is usually when these messages come up, that I tend to be so critical of the broadcast. This is nothing new. This is something I was critical of with the ESPN broadcast when they came back in 2007. I think even some of TNT's broadcasts back in the day, there's been problems from one broadcast to the other. And so there's been a long progression towards issues with this. And I've tried to find constructive ways as best as possible to articulate these problems and bring them to attention, because I get the sense from those that are actually, whether it's a producer issue or a talent issue, as has been talked about on a lot of these shows before, I'm not sure if they're aware of these problems. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm just popping off randomly and saying, oh, this stinks, this is terrible. This isn't just coming from nowhere. And I think yesterday was a validation of that. And it doesn't bring me any joy in saying that. I will frankly say that I reached a breaking point at that one during that Xfinity race. It was absolutely absurd. I think it was a top to bottom failure by the broadcast team. I don't think there's anything positive you could really say about, how the main people in the booth were handling it. I'm not even particularly willing to give a lot of latitude to the driver analysts either, although I will admit that they probably were the least of the problems in there. But at the same time, just in terms of how much action was missed, especially in a race like this, where this is supposed to be an event that is going to bring a lot of attention to the sport, and that this big mass restructuring of the Atlanta track, and purposefully doing so to make this into a super speedway, knowing that the kind of racing that we usually have at super speedways, and knowing that super speedways are, of course, much longer than Atlanta, not knowing exactly what we were going to get. I said all the way up into this weekend that I had no idea what we were going to be in store for. And I'm like, hey, we'll give it a try. We'll see how it shakes out. Knowing full well that last year, when the drivers were asked about this, Kyle Busch in particular was very outspoken about wondering why, what the thinking was with this track, what the unilateral decision was, and implying even, and I don't know how accurate this was, that the drivers themselves were not really even consulted about this particular change. That was troubling. However, I am willing to give any of these tracks, just like any of these teams and any of these drivers, the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how they actually perform. Let's go out there and see what happens, because I don't know any more than anybody else does about how this particular racing was going to be playing out. So going into Saturday's race in the Truck Series race, and seeing the tight racing at the beginning, and a couple of drivers having flat tires and not being able to get out of the way, those being Matt DiBenedetto and Hailie Deegan dropping back in there. It was a little bit concerning. My issue is much more with the tires than the form of racing. But then again, the broadcast during that race was really frustrating. I mean, they can't even get the name of the race winner right coming across the stripe. But, at that point, I was probably at about maybe about a level 5 or 6 upset about that. It's like, well, I mean, Vince Welch he's kind of had some touch and go calls there for the Truck Series booth. And I guess that, it's less surprising, just disappointing at that standpoint. But when it got to the Xfinity race, and there's all this goofing around, all this rain delay coverage thing where they just, and showing all these kids in the stands. I wasn't the only one pointing this out. I mean, there were several people pointing this out as being an issue through this entire broadcast. That is the kind of thing you do when there is nothing happening. And when you do that during green flag racing, you are indicating that nothing is happening. So when you were a casual viewer and you turned this on, suppose that was your first race you ever saw, was that Xfinity race. What would you actually think about NASCAR? It's like, well, this is stupid. Like, even the people in the booth don't care about what's happening. I've talked about this in my own NASCAR broadcast concerns issue, the most recent series on this. This attitude where, again, I don't want to sound like you're not allowed to have fun in the booth. I think it should be a fun experience. A lot of the greats did do it. Bob Jenkins or Eli Gold or anything, they would play around with each other. But the thing is when it came down to doing the very basic elements of it, and understanding that your job, when you are in the booth, whether you're a guest analyst or not, no excuses. I give no quarter to anybody on this. You have to tell us what the heck is going on. And when a car, under caution, slides through the grass, rips the splitter off, and nobody knows what happened, that was extremely irritating. That was extremely irritating. And they're going back to showing these kids, they're stalking these kids in the booth. I don't mean to play fast and loose with this, but it was getting absurd. I don't understand what was going on there. That one kid that they were filming that was that was wearing the Chase Elliott hat, he looked absolutely terrified. I don't know what was going on with the camera work over there, if this was a director issue or what was going on there, but this was something that was just building and building. And again, I've tried not to just be popping off here all the time on Twitter, because of course Twitter is a wonderful hate conduit. I am certainly not immune from that. If there's something that's going to be bothering me that we are all watching at the same time, especially in these broadcasts, I'm certainly going to be pointing it out. But it was just getting so much worse during that race, and I didn't get where they were congratulating, their camera work and all that, and all this other stuff. It felt like a troll, honestly. I don't know what was going on. It was upsetting. And I think what people don't understand, and perhaps I haven't been clear enough on this, I take that very personally. Even though I have never once set foot in one of these booths and called a race before. I have never actually even been in that position to call one of these races. And so I'm sure people would call into question me being this upset about a particular thing, especially when it's just the broadcast. The common responses, of course, being, oh, well, why don't you just listen to the radio? Oh, why don't you just change the channel? Oh, why don't you just watch another series? No. I care about this sport, and I want to make that abundantly clear. I know most of you guys that are regulars in this show, you know this, and so I'm not really speaking to you guys. But if there's anybody in here who is watching this, who perhaps was new to my feed or anything like that, and had any concerns of that, I want to make this extremely clear. It has been a long-standing passion of mine to try to hopefully one day, perhaps, although it perhaps may not seem that possible at this moment, to be more involved with the broadcast, whether it is either as one of the people in the booth, or I've actually thought of more lately to actually take on more of the role as a director or as a producer, or helping them with the research or something more behind the scenes, where I could kind of see what's happening, maybe kind of guide them this direction or that direction, and maybe have some effect on it that way. I would be extremely honored and extremely privileged if that were to ever happen in one time or another. And I try to work, very hard to try to produce any kind of content that would at least be worth a second look in that sense. In other words, this is something that I have been following for the years. And as many people have pointed, and even the detractors on this, I will agree that, yeah, I talk a lot about the 90s. I talk a lot about Bob Jenkins. I talk about Eli Gold, but they did do an excellent job. And I do believe that it's not just a subjective belief, that it is that there are objective standards of what is and is not quality broadcasting. I am quite honestly, I took a lot of influence from the work that Mahler has done in analyzing the Star Wars series of movies here on YouTube. Now, it's entirely different context if you're talking about the construction of a film, in fiction versus, real live commentating over broadcasting. But I do believe in his argument that there is such a thing as an objective standard of quality, whether it is an objective standard. I mean, just like in fiction, there is an element of storytelling that is necessary in broadcasting. There is an element of conveying information that is in broadcasting. And when there is a failure of that, it is extremely upsetting. It is extremely upsetting knowing that there are many people, I'm sure, out there, like myself, who would give almost anything for merely an opportunity to be in the booth, to have that privilege, to be considered alongside people like the Bob Jenkins, like Mike Joy, like a lot of these other personalities, Eli Gold, and the list goes on. It is a privilege to be there, just as it's a privilege to be in the media center, just as it is to be a privilege to be any of the drivers, to be working on the teams, to be involved in the sport in any way. Not everybody is able to do that. And I get there's only so many places to put people. But when and again, I don't believe that there's a subjective look at this and saying that, oh, well, it's just not up to my, impossible standards, and it's going to be like that. I think it's frankly, it comes off as just offensive. It really does. And I really was absolutely sick of it. And I think that when you see something like that, you see the quality of something go down. There's a couple of different ways that you can actually look at things. You could either, on the one side, just say, okay, well, look, this is as good as it's going to get, or maybe your objections are noted, and then you can just kind of shut up about it and just hope that it gets better. Or you can just keep beating the drum and, and then ultimately become so obnoxious that nobody wants to listen to you about anything. Neither of those things are positive outcomes, and I certainly don't want to fall into either of those. But I do believe that nothing is going to change unless we first believe that there is a problem. And I see so much debate in the past over there, even arguing if there's even been an issue there. The one thing I think that was encouraging from this past week was that most people were agreeing that the broadcast was bad and that it was pretty terrible. And by this, I point out the Xfinity and the Truck Series one, separate more from the Cup Series. Again, I believe the Cup Series broadcast was actually showing a lot of positive signs of improvement. And I was very clear in pointing out that difference. But I think that that's something that needs to be revisited. So, yeah. So this is a big thing to kind of look at here. The other issue that I look up here at the same time that I'm a little bothered by. I think the other thing that was perhaps actually kind of helpful from this, in the sense of maybe people trying to understand where I'm coming from on all of this. I got the sense from, especially what I sensed were, I wouldn't say there was all younger viewers. I think there were some that were kind of older viewers as well, where it's trying to understand where I'm looking at here, that all I'm saying is like, oh, everything today is terrible, that, everything about Bob Jenkins and the old broadcast is great, and this is never going to be good. This is always going to be terrible. No. The reason that I bring this up, and the reason that I have anguished about trying to find the right way to bring this information up, and why I ultimately just had to just bluntly just absolutely say it, is because we can get there. And I think it just takes some very simple steps. It may not require replacing anybody in the booth. It may not require replacing the director. It may not require replacing anybody else that's already doing this. You could work with the exact same parts you have. You could even work with the same graphics you have. I believe that that's the other part of this that's so frustrating. These are small issues. And I know that there's two ways you could look at that. You could say, oh, well, this is obsessing over it. This is such a small issue that it shouldn't matter. This is, and yeah, okay, sure, you got me. There's bigger things in the world. I'm cognizant of that. But I try not to speak to things that I don't understand. And this is something that I do understand. And I think I've analyzed a lot of these broadcasts in ways to understand that there are things from those that could be taken and brought into the current time. Of course, we can't have Benny Parsons or Bob Jenkins back. I get it. That's obviously not going to happen. I think it's a straw man to try to bring that up constantly. But I think there's inspiration that can be taken from the past. I think that there's a issue in the sport, which is really bizarre, because at this stage of the sport, especially a lot of people saying, oh, the sport's changing. Isn't it great how much the sport's changing, that it's doing this and it's doing that? Whereas in the booth, there's hardly any change at all. So what's the situation with that? You would think the same people that are interested in the sport changing and maybe doing things a bit differently would be more on my side about this. I was very surprised. It's like, oh, no, that can't change, or that's not going to change. Well, that's bizarre. Which is it? So I don't get it. I don't get it. So it was frustrating. It was frustrating. I think the only positive I can really glean from that is that for future episodes of the NASCAR broadcast issues, and there is another one already in the works, I'd actually kind of reached a plateau as to how to approach it. That third episode is going to be pretty easy to put together. I can pretty much just use the trucks and especially the Xfinity broadcast to fill up a whole episode on that. And that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. So we'll see how that works out here. But that was that was very upsetting. And again, and it should upset more people. I think the other thing that gets frustrating is I sense sometimes that it's like, okay, if it's just me or if it's just a few people that are concerned about this, is this just a me problem? And I've thought about that. I really have. And I try not to be too critical of people, because I've been in these situations before too, where it's been on on my side. But it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So I'm seeing a lot of comments here. I haven't been looking so much at them here, but I definitely look forward to kind of reviewing these here at the same time and kind of understanding that side of it here at the same time. But and I don't want things to get too too negative on the side here at the same time. But I really do think that a lot of any number of the TV issues, I mean, just the message of just pay attention, that by itself could have made the Xfinity race so much better. Like when they don't even pay attention to a last lap pass for a stage ending. Like if they're not going to be interested in a change for the lead in a stage, then people are rightfully going to wonder, well, why are we doing these stages? I mean, if it's not important to the broadcasters, it's not important for me to pay attention to. And yeah, you could fill in the gaps yourself, but then what are you doing at that point? It's a frustrating situation. Now, the other half of it that I understand is that I also, in that tweet, lumped in frustration with the racing itself. And I stand by that as well. I would say after the Truck Series race that I didn't immediately know what to make of it. I think that the racing, doing a super speedway package at Atlanta and having long single file drafts of trucks in that case, or, trying to kind of, launch people out of the draft or kind of do that kind of very different racing from what we saw at Atlanta before, was very different. But it's like, I think I mentioned this at the time, I wasn't sure exactly what to make of it. And so I kind of sat on it there for the Xfinity race. And then just kind of seeing the exact same thing again. And it was frustrating because it was just like the Daytona broadcast again. And I just felt very unengaged from what was happening. The last place battle was interesting. I'm glad it kind of went far enough into the race that you kind of had some exchanges back there. So I could at least do that aspect of it. And that's always kind of, colored that too. But, I mean, I don't know if it was just the time of the race, the fact that the cautions were taking forever, the fact that they were just conveying so little information, that they were just constantly showing these kids in the stands, that they seemed to just be going out of their way to do anything but talk about what was happening on the track. The fact that they felt that this completely new configuration of the track and bringing this different kind of racing in there, that they couldn't stay engaged enough with it to stay with the action and had to kind of find these other things. It was just insulting. It was insulting. It was irritating. And I think a lot more people should be irritated about it. It's unfortunate. And it's too bad because there were a lot of good runs, from drivers and teams that were getting good performances. And it's good that at least some positives were able to be gleaned from it. You even had people like, Ryan Sieg that had a chance at pulling off the race there. And again, I think the best conclusion to the weekend was today's Cup race, because the broadcast was significantly better. And I pointed this out, right from the outset. You could tell that Mike Joy was taking a much firmer stance in the booth, that he had Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer. They were still kind of talking about other things here and there. It's not 100% perfect, but he was more or less keeping it focused on it. They sounded engaged. They sounded excited in wanting to see how this car was going to be handling. They talked about comers and goers, drivers that damaged their cars and got back in there. Guys like Joey Logano and Ross Chastain, those were chronicled throughout this. They even gave a shout out to drivers like Josh Bilicki and BJ McLeod that were getting good runs. So that was really, that was good to see there too. So yeah, that was kind of a thing too. That was a good thing to see at the same time. But yeah, I thought that was a really good positive. But I think that I'd be very interested to rewatch a lot of the Xfinity and Truck Series broadcast again, to draw that comparison again, because it almost felt like there were a lot of corrections made by the Sunday one, and I'm wondering why it just didn't work as well at Saturday at all. So I'm hopeful, and I'm hopeful also on a more personal aspect that having vented about this, maybe that's going to be better for me personally as well. I hope that it is, because I don't want to just glom onto this all the time. I think there are a lot of people that, and especially probably newer viewers, that join my feed anticipating that I'm only going to be talking about the smaller teams and last place finishers, and I certainly like to focus on that primarily. But if you even look at that content is also geared in the same way that I imagine I would approach anything with play-by-play, doing research on which drivers and teams are changing up from one week to the next, seeing which drivers are going in there, because every week is silly season now. You got different teams coming in, so we got the entry list storylines. I've done the starting grid videos in the past to introduce storylines from previous races or statistics about previous events. And then the last place articles, look how much of that is play-by-play, just literally describing, just exchanging for one position. See how much action is back there. And I'm not expecting any of these broadcasters to fall last place. I don't think that that's going to be anything that's going to be interesting to anybody besides me. And I'm not going to, have it be that. But I think it captures the fact that if you stay engaged with the front of the field to a similar level, I think you're going to have a really interesting storyline that you can build on from one race to the next. And the other part of it is driver profiles, talking much more about drivers that are up and comers or veterans. This weekend, for example, with having first time last place finishers, perfect opportunity to not simply just say, oh, this person finished last and that's it, but actually going into it and saying, okay, well, this is where this person is at this point in their career. How long have they been in the circuit? A guy like Jade Buford, I remember his great runs in the Xfinity series with Bobby Daughter starting out. And now look at him here. He was actually running towards the front of this race even before he had the last place run. So placing it in that context, these are things that I'd like to see kind of reflected in that, because they're the aspects of the broadcast that I, have a passion for. So that would be good to see. So I guess what I'm saying from a lot of this is that, okay, for those of you that are longtime viewers, don't worry. We're not going down the route. I don't want to go down the route of being somebody that's just constantly complaining about that. And if it is getting to that point, and I'm sure there's enough people out there that are going to bring that up to me, that's good. I'm glad that people are, they're talking to me. I actually had some really good discussions, either through direct message or even I think it was on Facebook as well, with other people that were concerned about it. And I'm glad there are good discussions about it. And I'm always open to it. I try to really, be as open to that as possible. And maybe, and if it is a matter of looking at things differently or something else that I can bring to bear about it, I'm certainly open to that. The issue I take, though, is like, look, I mean, but at the same time, while this sport's going, if there's something that is going to be something that I think needs to be brought up as a problem, if it's something that I can bring any experience to bear through my following the sport for as long as I have, then I'm certainly going to do that. I think it would be a disservice not to. And even if I turn out to be completely wrong, if I have this completely backwards, then that's a learning experience for me. And I can talk with other people about it. And then, hey, you're not going to hear me complain about it at that point, unless it's something different. It'll be something at that point. I don't want to come off as intractable. I can only help but laugh when I get some comments from people that are saying like I'm a boomer or something. I know I was joking about that last week too. And I'm like, well, hey, I don't care if people do that. But I mean, it's like, well, look, I don't want to come off as somebody that is not open to NASCAR trying things. If I was not open to that, people, I wouldn't have jumped on board to make sure that I was covering the Busch Clash here this year. And I've been singing the praises of that most of this year. I thought it was fantastic. I love the crowd. It was an interesting venue. There's certainly things that could be worked on, especially in terms of fan access, but it's not, again, much like the broadcast, I don't think they're big problems. I think there are things they're probably more immediate problems, but not too immediate that they can't wait until next January or February, rather than, these broadcasts that are a week-to-week experience and are very much coloring the experience of the sport for new fans that are trying to get into the sport. I think that's important. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where the other kind of look, that I have from that. But, yeah, I don't want to go down too far down that road. I don't want to be too negative on everything here, but I want people to understand that when I do have a concern about something, I am expressing a legitimate concern. I'm not trying to get clicks. I'm not trying to get attention to anything. Me in 2006 would have probably done that, because me in 2006 didn't know what the heck he was doing. But nowadays, I try not to get that far down the road in something unless I am absolutely willing to support my opinion and talk about it and open the conversation on it. And I hope that that goes here. And I want to kind of review these comments here at the same time in the spirit of that as well, because I think that is important, and so I don't want that to be a turnoff. And it troubles me a little bit to have, perhaps either unwittingly or perhaps purposefully. I mean, I wouldn't say purposely. That's not the right word. Unwittingly is certainly the right word. Getting the reputation of being somebody that only talks about the golden age of the sport and implies that there's nothing good about the sport now. Nothing could be further than the truth. If that were the case, I wouldn't be doing LASCAR at all. I wouldn't want to. And every one of these live streams would be me just coming on here and saying how amazing Hut Strickland was or something. Now, I'd like to talk about Hut Strickland and do my videos on that on the YouTube channel, for example. But we talk about the current state of the sport and where it's going. And I think somewhere between newer and younger fans that are kind of more passionate about different racing than older school fans that could sit down and watch a 500-mile race at Dover, which is pretty unimaginable these days, I would have to admit. I think there's somewhere in the middle ground is where it's going to have to be, but that's only going to happen with a decent conversation on that. So yeah, so that's kind of where I am. I'm kind of losing steam on this here a little bit. But I'm sure people have other questions on that, and I'm perfectly happy to go into that. Beast of Metal, I saw your super chats on here too. Thank you so much for those right off the bat here. So let me get those first of all here, and then I want to kind of review this as we go into kind of our race review section from this, because yes, there was a lot to certainly talk about in just the quality of the racing, the change of the sport, the never-ending discussion of racing versus entertainment, or if one is able to be the other, or if one has always been the other. Those are things to talk about there too. But Beast of Metal, yeah, thank you for the super chat there. Where was it on the first one on here? Michael Jensen, I saw yours as well. Let me get yours here first. Thank you so much on the $20, by the way. I classify it as above average race simply because I don't like manufacturing side-by-side racing. Vegas to me was better. Shout-outs to LaJoy, McLeod, and Balicki, as well as Cody Ware until the crash. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this is a good way to kind of bring it in there. And again, thank you for the super chat on that one there, Michael. Yeah, I think for this race today, it was above average. I think the broadcast helped with that because we got those storylines and we saw. I think this was probably the best feature so far, even before we really get to short tracks beyond the clash, of how durable this car is, of how these teams are able to make repairs on pit road and in most cases get back out there. Yes, the garage area did get pretty full up towards the end, but you saw the severity of the hits that you actually had to take to actually knock yourself out of the race. Was impressive. I mean, it took something as bad as like Cody Ware's hit. And again, I'm glad to see him get out of the car. I hate that he got knocked out. It looked like he was going to get a top 20, and I would have loved to talk about that too, especially with their partnership with Rick Ware this year. But yeah, it was an above average race. I think I would have to agree with that, Michael. I think the difference that I have with this is I don't like the idea of turning everything into a super speedway. And I think there's already been discussions about that. Obviously at Texas, where we just had the IndyCar race today, there's been no shortage of complaints about that track. And I saw it in person last year for the All-Star race, and while I do think it had some interesting last place battles that weekend, maybe not the most exciting battles for first place there. Is the solution to that track to just turn it into another Daytona? I don't really think so. I think at this point we have a kind of dangerous situation here where we're going to just turn every track into super speedways. And, I guess logistically or just logically, you're not gonna be able to do that at a short track or a road course. But I don't like the perception that a race at a 1.5 mile track is necessarily bad, especially this early in the season, where we've seen the Cup Series have a fantastic race in Fontana at a very old surface and a very wide surface. And as you mentioned, Michael, good race at Vegas, where you had a lot of comers and goers there, and different strategy came into play for Bowman's victory there. Even a good race at Phoenix, where you had the top 3 finishers being drivers that never won before. And how many times have we heard since Phoenix has been the finale for the season, people saying, why is it at this track? Why do we have to go to this track? It's a terrible venue for the championship. Well, with these cars, they're probably going to put on a pretty dang good show there in November, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that, hopefully. So that's another thing to kind of look at there. But I think that the examples of Vegas, as you pointed out, and Fontana as well, indicate that you could still have great racing at more traditional venues. I think that the dangerous part here is if you just turn, Atlanta is one of the most interesting tracks in the circuit. It had fantastic racing when it was a perfect oval. Some of them were fuel mileage races. You think back to like 1992 and Bill Elliott pulling a bit of a rope-a-dope there to get 4 straight wins, and then pulling off the win again in November when Alan Quickie locked up the championship, of course being the venue for that most famous race there as well. And then all the quad oval races, the Bobby Labonte dominated, the photo finishes there. It had some character, and I think a lot of the races that we saw in both those eras are just not possible on this current track, at least with the pavement the way it is. Now, Atlanta's gone through this before. In 1997, when they were repaved the first time, the track was blindingly fast, and I could see why NASCAR put the restrictor plate in, perhaps trying to avert something like what we saw with Tim Steele's career, where he had an accident driving for Bud Moore, and that pretty much just kind of cut his Cup career short before it even really had a chance to kind of get started there. Thankfully, at least from what we're seeing here, although there were some very close calls in all 3 races, not hearing anything serious on that end. So that's certainly positive to see. But I think the track loses a bit of character when it's forced into the design of doing the super speedway racing there. I think, and especially again, I do share Kyle Busch's concern earlier about this whole idea about having pack racing, but then eliminating a groove in the corners in the back straightaway. You could have people fan out on the front stretch, and that's interesting, and then slot back into line again. But I think traditional super speedway racing doesn't really allow for that. I think it's much more about precision, about staying in line for the entire lap, whether it's, Daytona or Talladega, or hopping from one lane to the other. Not, trying to shake that up a little bit, I think created kind of some issues with this. This felt like much more of a crash fest than a super speedway race in the traditional sense. And, that's enough to keep it engaging. Although part of that, I guess, also is the Chevy teams having the issue with the right rear tires blowing out and everything. So that was kind of a problem there too. But, I mean, am I going to see a race like that where it has, a pretty, crazy, crazy racing there, and a lot of people kind of coming back and forth and say it's a terrible race? Well, no, not in that sense. I do think in the Xfinity race, I think they were much more likely to race less competitively there, and then it became a super speedway race at exactly the wrong time for Ryan Sieg getting drop kicked from the lead there, and John Hunter Nemechek coming out. One concern I had in the Cup race today was that you just couldn't get to the front. It felt like super speedway racing in 2013, where you would have a driver up front and everybody's spaced out by about a half a car length between each car, and you just can't leapfrog up there. Ryan Blaney was holding a spot up there for a while, couldn't do anything, got routed out of the way. Bubba Wallace in the same spot, trying to get up there, trying to make something happen. Couldn't get around Byron. And I guess you can applaud Byron for just being able to just hold that car up there and be able to, run as competitively as he did. But that's, that's kind of a different situation there. So, yeah. But let's see. Oh, I saw Bell disqualified earlier on here, but that was for the below the line penalty there for sure on that side. So let's see. Oh yeah, let me get the other super chats here as well. So Michael, yeah, thank you for yours first of all. Beast of Metal, let me get yours as well here, and then we'll jump into other discussions from there. Oh, hang on, I got you here. Beast Metal, your first one here. Thank you for $10 on here. Sunday's product and coverage were more engaging, but from the moment Chastain hit the wall, all I could think was just that this project is a defeatist gesture that could cripple or kill someone someday. Well, there's concerns. I share your concerns about the wrecks that we saw today. In fact, Gregson's accident at the beginning I thought was very a bit scary there. When you have a car hook it like that and hitting head onto the outside wall. Luckily, we've seen a few crashes with the next gen car. It seems to hold up with things okay. And obviously you have the safer barriers, so it's much safer than any races back in the day. Not to say that it's an entirely safe activity, of course. Any racing out there is going to be have that element of danger in it at the same time. But I do think that this was done. I think this reconfiguration was done a little bit recklessly. I think there was a lot of work put into it. But I think it was kind of this is the first reconfiguration I've seen where it seems like it's almost designed like like a Hot Wheels track kind of thing. I mean, to have like 4 lanes open on the front straightaway and kind of take the bend out of the quad oval there and stretch that out almost to like a Michigan kind of thing, and then narrow it down so you basically just have 2 lanes for an entire half of the track. Was just begging for somebody to cross somebody else's nose and cause a big wreck. And we did see some big wrecks, not always in turn 1 or turn 4, but in a number of spots as well, including, of course, the back straightaway. Even the Xfinity Series race had a big pile up back there too. It's the first one I've seen where they're kind of adding this like trick element to it there. And I guess people were really looking into this and trying to see like what would work best. But on that back half of the track, it's so narrow. And to me, that's so antithetical to what Atlanta has traditionally been, which is having a very wide surface and picking as many different lines as possible. I treated that as akin to what Texas did with PJ1, where they have a wide track surface, but by putting PJ1 in all the outer lane there, you have made that whole portion of that track just undrivable. And anybody that went up there in any of the series that weekend immediately found trouble out there. I think it was a lot like that. But to design it purposefully there and, reduce that, I thought that was a shame. I thought one of the best things with Atlanta was that you could choose a different line and you could have some good racing out there. I hope they don't do this to a place like Michigan that may, again, not always have the best racing out there, but it has options where you can have multiple different grooves and try to figure that out. And I think with this new car, it opens possibilities of drivers being able to do that, being able to have a car that is more maneuverable and harder to drive. And maybe the car breaks loose and you got to run a different line than the one you had. In this one here, there was just no margin for error. Not to say there aren't tracks that do that. I mean, I guess you could look at Darlington and you could talk about the fact that you could fan out away on the straightaways, although there's pretty much just one groove there even now, since the 2009 repave, and then hug against the wall out there. But, I don't think that's conducive to super speedway racing. I wasn't a big fan of that. I wasn't a big fan of the racing in general. I'm pleased that it wasn't as dangerous as I think you and I had been concerned about Beast of Metal. So I definitely share your concern from that. And so, yeah, I say that while wearing Harris Lou's magnum opus here from that. So, it was just, it's I don't know. It's hard to kind of look at it there at the same time. But I hope that it's not something that catches on, because I think it's going to make a lot of tracks much more dangerous than they need to be and much less raceable. I think the discussion, and I'm already seeing it before I logged on to the show here tonight, is between people that like super speedway racing or don't like super speedway racing. I think the other aspect of it is whether you believe that super speedway racing is the best form of stock car racing. You think that that's stock car racing in its purest form. That I'm not sure, because I always like viewing super speedway racing as kind of a specialty. Even back in the day, they would run like special cars for it with the drop snout noses and things like that. It was a specialty, just like road courses were, just like short tracks were. That the norm had always been 1.5 mile tracks like Atlanta, or 2 mile tracks like Michigan. Even back then, when short tracks were kind of on the decline and they tried to kind of push them over to these 1.5 mile tracks, like it or not, they became kind of the main part of it. I don't think the solution is to turn one of these tracks into this. Now, I mean, they tried this. There was no precedent for it. I guess you can't be too hard on Atlanta for trying it just to see if it could work. But I don't know. I think if you have dessert every day, like, or for every meal, it's just not going to be as enjoyable. I think it's better when you have to wait for a race at Daytona. We have to wait for a race at Talladega. And it's, and some races are just going to be boring. Some races at Daytona and Talladega have been boring. It's entirely possible. Remember that one that Almirola won at Talladega, where the top 4 Stewart-Haas guys just stayed in the same draft the whole time and weren't touched? Is anybody going to legitimately say that was the most amazing race ever? Or say that, oh my gosh, this is the reason that Talladega needs to be reconfigured and, turn it into a short track or something? I mean, it feels like that. I think all the way to the end, even Kurt Busch's run there at the Atlanta race last year was exciting. Now, the track surface needed to be changed. It was falling apart. And I think that's, it's forgivable to try something, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. So yeah. Beast Metal, I saw your other super chat here. Thank you again for that. See regular chat for rest of rant. It's long again. So yeah, I'll check that there too. But yeah, I kind of want to look through here too, and in part of this. Let's see here. Oh, I saw Lefty Lucy was in here a bit earlier. I think you ducked out there earlier, but yeah. Yeah, you're probably not going to get what I'm talking about with the TV issues for sure. And certainly being at the track, there's nothing better than that. But that would be another thing to kind of look at it there too. I see your comment there, Joshua. Yeah, you're asking about the Fox broadcast. Again, I thought the Fox broadcast was much better today. I was absolutely not nearly as upset about it today as I was last week, or, from anything. I thought they did a much better job focusing on the action. I think the broadcasts are at their best when the play-by-play guy has a firm hand on the wheel and makes sure that everything is about what is happening on the track, and everybody builds off of that. When you don't have that kind of leadership, unfortunately, you get situations like yesterday where everybody's just sitting on the couch and goofing around. And some people like that. I guess it's like, if that's what floats your boat, then great. And it comes down to a matter of preference. But I still think it's not practical for an element of play-by-play. But I've already beat that, every direction as well here too. Let's see. Yeah, PJ Bailey, talk about the shake and bake thing. I mean, that was the thing. That's kind of how that whole thing developed too, is like, okay, so you got a couple fans in the stands. And okay, you have these little girls there, and one's wearing shake and one's wearing bake as a shirt, and they're waiting for them to stand in the right order. But it's like, okay, is that really worth that much camera time? Is that really an issue? Like, the race is happening. Like, you could, if you had a rain delay thing, you could probably try to bring a camera guy out there and maybe be like, okay, we're filling time. Like, because, I mean, sometimes they do stuff where they talk to people in the stands. I think it's a little trickier in this case because, I mean, I'm sure if I were a parent and had my kids there, I don't know how they feel about having their kids shown quite as much as they were in that. I thought it was getting weird. It was getting a little bit weird. But I don't know. I thought that was just a little bit much there. And again, I did mention that, ESPN and CBS, they would do shots like that with people in the stands. And sometimes look at the 98 Daytona 500 and show, like, you see Earnhardt fans that are just on the edge of their seat. And that's perfect because that's capturing, it's directly related to what's happening during the race. These people are like, oh my gosh, it's like, is this the time he's finally going to do it? And that was an important moment to capture. And I thought the camera work in that, the direction was fantastic. But again, I know there's a lot of people are going to say, oh, Brock only likes it because it's old. No, I liked it because it was good. If it's good now, I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up gladly. And like I said, with today's broadcast, I thought on the general side, it was good. But, I don't know. I didn't think it really worked as well on Saturday. Let's see. Let me check on here. Yeah, JD Racing 84, I see your comment on there. Mike Joy did a great job when he was on TNN and in the early days of Fox. It's not Mike, it's the producers who tell Mike what to say, period. Yeah, and again, I agree again, as I've talked about on this, again, some of these issues could be production issues, some of them are talent issues, some of them are both. And again, I think the particular issue is with the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. I have less of an issue with the Cup Series one there, but it was that was kind of a problem with that. Let's see. Ryan Idius, I see your comment there. You are right to be critical of the broadcast, considering that's how millions of people experience the race. Exactly. And again, I think a lot of what NASCAR's changes have been with the intent of trying to attract new fans. So if that's your intent, then your first focus should be on how the sport is presented. And the problem, I think, is that a lot of these changes have been towards the racing. It's like, oh no, the racing needs to change. That first it was like, oh, well, they don't have anything to race for, so let's give them stage points. It's ridiculous. Then it's like, oh, well, these tracks aren't very good, so let's make them super speedways. Let's add more road courses. Let's do that. And it's like, well, wait a minute. All this focuses on the racing. If half that focus was on the broadcast, I think we'd be in a great spot. And we'd be able to be there. But that was kind of a different situation there too. Let's see. Zach G, I'm looking at your comment here. Problem is that Fox looks at the low views and chooses not to invest money or time into the coverage, and that's wrong. Yeah, exactly. And that could be an issue, and that brings up a good point too. Is the issue with the broadcast because of a lack of funding? And is it a catch-22? Is the lack of funding because of the lower quality of the broadcast? And where's the racing fit in? I think that's a good question. Let's see here. Oh, WWE Syndicate. Yeah, no worries, man. I totally get it. I still got to file mine, so don't worry about that. Let's see. Casey, I see your comment. It's looking to me like NBC is preparing to fully take over NASCAR coverage on the next TV deal. Fox's product quality has clearly been slipping of late. Yeah, and I don't know if that's going to be happening or not. NBC definitely seems more sure-footed than Fox now. I do maintain that a lot of problems that Fox has are still reflected in NBC. I tried to capture that in my first broadcast video because I don't want to make it seem like I'm just picking on one side of it. I'm sure there's going to be more episodes of the broadcast issues once we get to the second half of the season. I do think it's important to have multiple networks still because they can at least compete against each other and try different things, and maybe people prefer to have one or the other. I think that would be good to see. I think that was one thing that probably helped people like ESPN back in the day because they had to compete against several networks. You had CBS, you had TNN, you had ABC, although that kind of was brought into the ESPN fold there along the way, so that kind of took care of itself. These were challenges, and they all had slightly different approaches with slightly different groups. So that's kind of the situation. Let's see. The broadcast start a GoFundMe to buy the broadcast rights and put it on YouTube. I don't know. Maybe, streaming options are probably going to be in the near future. I don't know how much that's going to fix the actual broadcast quality. But I'm not even sure. I'm kind of skimming through here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Philip, thank you for bringing this up. Yeah, there's a 10-car wreck, and instead of going to report on the issues from pits and garage about the damage, Fox decides to interview John Schmaltz. Like, well, yeah, there you go. So, again, it's a matter of mixing priorities. Like, can't you figure out what's happening during the race and then do John? Like, John, I'm sure, wouldn't mind just standing there and watch the people work. Yeah, there's problems where, there's no shortage of action. That's the other part of it. Like, I would imagine if you're in the booth or if you're in the production thing, you don't have time to goof around. You don't have time to be like popping off on jokes because there's so many things that are happening during the race, so many things that are happening in the garage area. You have so many tools to work with, whether it's the leaderboard or listening to the scanner or talking to the pit reporters. It should be mission control the whole time. I'm amazed if they have any time for that. Then I think they're doing it wrong. It's like being able to talk while you're doing a cardio workout. If you're able to talk while you're doing a run, you're probably not running fast enough. You know, I think that's kind of the attitude I have on that. Oh yeah, Lefty Lucy, yeah, or Captain Ron. I saw your comment there on the MRN broadcast. I'm not sure if you're still in here. I know you ducked out, probably ducked out earlier here. But yeah, TV have always been an issue. Yeah, I mean, there's the ESPN, you know, has not always been perfect. I mean, could they do a thing nowadays where they do a track fact segment from Quaker State in the middle of a race? Like, no, they're not. I mean, they could do what CBS did. And when somebody's leading by 10 seconds, they're going to break away and do an entire segment on a driver profile that could have been in the pre-race. No, I mean, you don't. I mean, there were things back then that just wouldn't be workable now. But I do think there's some inspiration that could be a factor there too. Let's see here. Owl, I saw your comment. Yeah, why don't you just start a channel where you go to certain races to live stream the races from that view and give a massive middle finger to Fox? Well, that would not be a smart idea. Actually, I think there's actually some pretty tight restrictions on broadcast rights when it comes to that. So I'd rather avoid something like that. But I appreciate the spirit of it. Competition, I do think, improves quality. But there's probably, hopefully, there'll be another option from that too. But I don't know. I think the next best thing is just doing these shows here and kind of bringing things up there at the same time. Conrail 199,000. I see your comment there. Well, we need more professional broadcasters like Lee Diffie rather than filling the booth with washed up drivers and crew chiefs. Yeah, well, I think again, there's always room for color commentators. I don't have a problem with drivers being color commentators and making things engaging because that's part of the experience too. So there's no problem with that. But I do think that somebody like Lee Diffie usually does a pretty good job of being like the main guy and keeping everybody focused. Or if the color commentators are talking about something else, you can kind of Bigfoot up and say, "Oh, look at this that's happening," or "Let's look at this happening," or something like that would be kind of interesting. Yeah, that would be something to kind of look at there too. JD Racing 84. So your comment, NASCAR went the way of WWE about 15 years ago. And the fact is you shouldn't like anything you're seeing because it's all the result of delegitimizing what an auto race is supposed to be. Well, see, that's the other thing is like, I agree with the passion of that. I think probably yesterday's Xfinity race was the first time I actually kind of felt that. Because I see videos from a lot of channels that, or a lot of complaints on Twitter where it's down that line and it's more like, yeah, just we're detracting further and further from people building cars, trying to find out whose car is the best, working the right strategy and things of that nature. It would be, it's unfortunate the way it's set up now. But I don't know. That would be a whole other problem with that. But I don't think, I did feel a little bit, it's like, this is ridiculous. Like, it's like, why are they doing a super speedway race here and then not going through the trouble of doing this and then not paying attention to what happens? I thought that was just, ridiculous. But, I think that you're going to get more of that WWE comparison if you turn everything into a super speedway. So that's going to be there too. Yeah. I see your comments there on Al. Again, I appreciate the comment there. But yeah, that would be a different, that'd be a different situation there. Let's see. Bring back Alan Bestwick. Yeah, I'm all on board with that on that, Zach, for sure. Let's see. I was certainly more entertained by the IndyCar race, JD Racing. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. I need to check that out. So there's been that. Let's see here. Xfinity entry list storylines. There you go. I appreciate that. I'm glad you like the storylines there, Death Killer. I like putting those together. That really helps me prepare for the weekend. I'm sure these broadcasters do some kind of preparation for the week. At least I hope they do. But I think that makes it so much easier, especially when I'm doing stuff at the track. I really need to understand like who's in which car, maybe which team has like a lot of momentum, or how somebody's done at the track in the past or something. I mean, Greg Biffle today, the New York Racing Team, them getting that great finish out there. I thought that was absolutely worth talking about. So that was certainly good to see. Let's see. Kind of looking through here at the same time. I don't want to just read. I appreciate the positive comments here too, but I don't want to just cherry pick those there. I want to see, anybody else has any complaints about or any concerns of it. I'd be perfectly happy to talk about that because I want to. Again, you disagree with my view on this and believe that maybe either of these broadcasts are great the way they are, or if you think that it's just never going to change. I'd be perfectly happy to hear from you guys too. And again, if it's a matter of looking at different things, that'd be great. I know there was a lot of comparisons to the IndyCar and the Formula One broadcast. I'm glad that was, again, keep the discussion going. I don't think having a discussion about something is bad. I don't think we should always shy away from debate. I think that's the way that you can either test how good something really is, and maybe it doesn't change, or find a way to make it better. I think that should be better. I think I try to improve my stuff whenever I can, whether it's the sound quality in a video, or if I get a fact wrong. I mean, I was looking over my comments and my posts on LastCar, and yeah, I mean, there were a lot of ads I had to preen out, but most of the comments were just corrections. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, I didn't think of that, or oh, I need to put that in there. I appreciate that. I absolutely do, because it's just a one-man operation here. So if I'm wrong, I definitely want to be corrected. I want to do the best I can out there. And again, and that's where I think at the same time, these broadcasters who have an even more prestigious position, they should be open to that too. They absolutely should. And it shouldn't be surprising when a lot of time they're just laughing. They don't notice what happened to a car, and then they're showing those girls in the stands again. It gets absurd. It just gets absurd. I'm less angry about it today than I am yesterday, but I know that's probably going to change when I rewatch the videos this week here too. And Beast of Metal, yeah, I'm seeing your rest of your comments there as well on that. I mean, it's unfortunate, the direction towards turning everything into a super speedway. I don't think that's the way for everything to go. I think that was the problem I had with this. Everybody's saying like, wow, this racing is incredible. It's like, this racing is exactly what we have at Daytona, but at a track where there's nowhere to go. And and a race that just took forever. I mean, the Xfinity race seemed like it wasn't as much of an issue today. But I don't know. Let's see here. Or Kyle Busch has some grievances. Okay, I think this was the part here where we were just talking more about the wrecks during the race here as well. Yes, yeah, great run for New York Racing Team. Michael Turner, I saw your comment on that there as well. Yeah. Okay, this was earlier. I saw this. I thought, Josh, I saw your comment there earlier too. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, again, when I first heard about them reconfiguring Atlanta and taking the super speedway angle, my first thought, especially when they showed the practice clips, I guess this was reaffirmed when I saw the practice clips yesterday. I could only think Las Vegas 2011 because I was thinking, oh my gosh. But I mean, of course, these are Cup cars. These are closed cockpit cars. They've been, they've been through crashes that, seem like they're handling pretty well. Yeah, see, exactly. There you go. I see this comment here too, Beast of Metal. Yeah, you're right on it. You're on the same wavelength here. That was a concern, and again, I think that, a lot of concern that I had coming into this was, similar to what we saw last year at the Indy Road Course, where they had these wrecks and the broadcaster just like, well, which crash was your favorite? And like not really caring if anybody was hurt or the absolutely ridiculous reasons that, these curbs were coming up when they shouldn't have and causing these accidents, not taking things seriously when a serious analysis of it should have been done. I thought the tire problems from this weekend probably should have been made a bigger deal of. I'm glad, I think it was Matt Weaver posted about the Goodyear official coming to the media center and talking about the fact that some of the Chevy teams had either over-cambered or I believe it was overtaxed the tires in some way. That it wasn't just a tire failure within the whole field there, but that would be another one. Yeah, Doris Andrews, I agree with you too. So yeah, same with that. But again, I think if NASCAR is going to turn, we're at kind of a turning point here. Again, this is the first, as I said earlier, this is the first reconfiguration of a track that feels like it was done more for entertainment. Like it's one step away from being the hard driving track in for the Sega Genesis there, that we're going to add loop-de-loops here, and things like that, or jumps and stuff like that. I mean, they pretty much did off of turn 2. That was a ridiculous how rough that section was there. I was kind of expecting some pavement to come up there after a while, even with the new repave. It's, if we turn everything into a super speed, or everything that can into a super speedway, I think you're going to really, you're just going to muffle the sport here. It's unfortunate, especially unfortunate when we're just starting to get good cup races at places like Fontana and Las Vegas, where the Xfinity Series has been really good at the 1.5 miles the last few years with the talent that's in there. And the Truck Series has been hold and serve. Even though they've never really been entirely designed for anything more than short tracks, I think they've done a decent job. There was a stretch of time where Las Vegas was kind of their Daytona, even though it didn't have pack racing. It had a lot of competition, a lot of good competition, and that would be good to see more of. But I'm not sure if we're going to, get there. But I don't think the takeaway from this weekend should be that every track gets turned into a super speedway. I think that would be the wrong message to take, as tempting as it would be, because I'm sure, especially at Texas, people are looking at that, with all the mistakes that have been made over there, and it's unfortunate. But no, I'm much more of a fan of racing where you can see the drivers really trying to fight the cars and fighting each other and trying to get around there. The short tracks and the road courses, in particular, I think are good venues. In Darlington, I give that an honorary short track mention for basically having half a groove. Every time I've gone there, it always feels like it's been like just a half groove they have there, and you're just trying to keep that thing off the wall. It's still it's unique and having a unique challenge. And I think transplanting Daytona to Atlanta and then doing this ridiculous lane elimination thing, I think is just kind of silly. So I don't know. That's a different part to look at there too. I see. I hope I haven't missed a big comment on here. I'm kind of checking through this here too. Yeah, we're talking a lot about the other broadcasters. Jeremy, I saw your comment there. Yeah, Buddy Baker, Ned Jarrett, Benny Parsons. Drivers in the booth aren't the problem. It's choosing the right drivers. Fair point. I was very surprised. I will say this. I was very surprised by how well Jeff Gordon did today, because I thought he's traditionally not been very good in the booth. I thought he was kind of phoning it in a lot last year. And of course, his bias towards the Hendrick cars can't be overlooked. Obviously, he's been able to, now get this great job at Hendrick Motorsports, so he can actually, not have to hide that as much. Maybe it was the fact that he's now locked that in, but he seemed to do a pretty good job today. I thought he was decent. I thought he was better than he had been before. So that was good to see. Alex Luft, I see that you're going to Indy 500 this year. Right on. I do agree with Michael with your comment that we need to get a 43 car field. I think the more cars, the better. I'm surprised that's one aspect that NASCAR has changed. It seems like they want to have fewer and fewer cars out there. But yeah, it was definitely a complete roller coaster of emotions this weekend. Kind of going from, feeling like just the not sure what to make of it from the truck race, and Vince Welch not being sure who won, and then going to the Xfinity race where it was just galling, and then having the Cup Series race where the racing wasn't really that much different from the Xfinity race, but the broadcast was significantly better. But I don't know. We'll see how things take place this next week when we go into COTA. Let me get back into the races here as well to talk about that. Any other runs here? BJ McLeod, yeah, now inheriting the 19th spot there after the Bell disqualification. Biffle in the 20th spot there, first top 20 finish for the New York Racing Team. So again, great job by John Cohen and the bunch over there. Josh Bilicki in the 16th spot. Chase Briscoe came back from a lot of wrecks. I thought he had a significant right front damage from that wreck with Ty Dillon. I thought for sure he was out of the race, or at least he was going to be like lagging at the back, kind of like Tyler Reddick and Kevin Harvick were later in the event. But no, he ends up finishing in the 15th spot and came into the race as the point leader. Be interesting to see where he shakes out with it now after the 24 went to victory lane here. So that'll be something else to look at. Todd Gilliland, unfortunately, got in that incident towards the end there, 27th spot. Hamlin, 29th. His rough start to the season continues. Cole Custer in the bottom 5. But again, Noah Gragson, unofficially again, still your last place finisher as we wait for the results from technical inspection. I want to also get through the Xfinity and Truck Series articles. We'll do our trivia segment here tonight. For those of you who are regular viewers here, of course, you're new to the show here. You want to stick around for that as well. You're absolutely welcome to. And we'll get into that. But on the Xfinity side here, Landon Castle finally gets his first top 5 finish in the Xfinity Series since 2011 at Daytona, finishing 5th in the Kaulig Racing entry. Great job for him. Good job for him remembering his parking pass as well. Mason Massey gets a career best 6th place finish, and he was absolutely over the moon, as he should be. DGM Racing for Mario Gosselin gets 2 of their cars in the top 8. The second of which being Kyle Weatherman, tying his top 10 finish with Mike Harmon in Kentucky in 2020. Finishes 8th again, this time in the LS Tractor Machine. Great run from him. He actually got some screen time during that utterly botched broadcast. I'm glad that was one thing they could get right. J.J. Yaley in the 11th spot there. Good run for him. Ryan Vargas just outside in the 12th spot. Nearly had 2 of the JD Motorsports cars, maybe even in the top 10. Bailey Curry lost fuel pressure towards the end, dropped down to the bottom part of the field, in the bottom 10 in the 29th spot there. Trevor Bayne tried to go for the win there, bounced it off the wall. He ends up dropping back in the lineup. Let's see here. Shane Lee in the top 20 for Emerling Gase's team, finishing in the 17th spot. Tommy Joe Martins rounds out the top 20 in the number 45, just behind Alex LeBay and Brandon Brown. Lots of competitors there, lots of comers and goers in the race. That's probably one aspect I liked of it. Although, again, I think the Xfinity crew did a much worse job of it than the Cup Series broadcast. Again, I think they should make a big thing out of people that, are able to rally from damage. That's going to be a big story, especially in the Cup Series this year with guys testing the limits of these cars. I thought it was good to see. In the Xfinity Series, unfortunately, guys like Joe Graff Jr., who was trying to get in the top 10, I got to say, I'm really starting to feel for this kid, especially after talking with him back at Fontana. He was visibly frustrated and embarrassed about that whole situation there with the seat. And that they weren't able to qualify that car there. Had a good run going in this race. Unfortunately, dropped back to the 23rd spot there at the finish of this one when he had that tangle with Daniel Hemrick. Jeffrey Earnhardt, I was glad to see him get a good run in the 13th spot. He tried so hard to get a good run with that Sam Hunt effort back at Fontana. They came back from so much only to have the alternator fail and drop him out of contention there. Great run out of him there. I think that's, they're right on the verge of getting a top 10. A good follow-up also, of course, to John Hunter's run at Phoenix. He rightly predicted that John Hunter would do very well in that 26 car, and he certainly has. But going further back, as I mentioned, Jay Buford got his first last-place finish there. I was anxious to talk about him. This is a driver and a team I've always wanted to kind of do more of a deep dive on. As much as I was hoping it would be the first time I'd write about him be when he won. But unfortunately, he gets his first last-place finish before that, getting involved in an incident on the back straightaway and absolutely destroyed the rear of his car after getting in the path of Jeremy Clements. Looked like Loris Hesmans was going to be your last-place finisher earlier. There's something seriously wrong with that Josh Realm injury, and that team's already got an unfortunate weekend for them, combined with the hauler incident with the hauler that went out the wrong tunnel. That was one thing that the Xfinity broadcast did catch, but unfortunately kind of focused a little too much on. I feel terrible for the truck series, truck driver there. Lasbro has actually been working in the trucking industry there, so he definitely empathizes with that driver as well. So that was the case there with that. But Jade Buford, I love that paint scheme, first of all, that 48 car. I think that's probably one of the best paint jobs, certainly a regular paint job in the Xfinity series. I think the big machine scheme looked really cool. I couldn't help take as many pictures as possible, even after they crashed out back at Fontana for the archives here. Unfortunately, they get eliminated early on, but his first last place finish, he hadn't finished last before that. And it was a good opportunity to talk about his road course experience. I certainly anticipate him doing much better at COTA next week. I think that would be really exciting to see. But that was your last place finisher in the Xfinity series. In the truck series, a bit of a scary situation there. Haley Deegan had a flat left rear tire. Apparently some kind of issue there with the brake line caused a leak. And there was a fire underneath the truck to the point where Deegan was noticing how hot it was in the truck. And really expressing concern. There was some frustrating hesitation from the DGR team to actually call her in. Once they did, they were trying to extinguish the left rear wheel. There was a clear ring of flame on the inside of the tire. It looked like fluid got on the tire and caught fire. Very scary situation, but good to see Haley get out of there. She was treated for smoke inhalation, but luckily treated and released from the infield care center. So good for her on that. But glad she's okay for the races coming up here. But your first last place finish for reason of tire, I thought it listed as fire in the results, both of which have happened in NASCAR before, but not in the Truck Series. This being the first time ever, the fourth time in NASCAR history that it was a reason. I believe it was the first time since 1955 that it's come up in any of NASCAR's top 3 series. And of course, those are the kind of statistics I love to bring up in the Last Car articles. Deegan getting the last place run from DiBenedetto, who lost 12 laps in the early stages after slapping the wall. Looked like he was going to be out of the race, but actually finished in the 30th spot outside of the bottom 5. Matt Mills, Dean Thompson, Lawless Allen, and Thad Moffitt, your bottom 5 there. Looking further up the lineup there, Matt Jaskell with a decent run in the 19th spot there, 1 spot behind Jordan Anderson. Chris Hacker, the Hacker man, doing a good job there for Josh's team, finishing in the 17th spot. I was interested to see Chase Purdy in the 14th spot in the second HRE entry. Austin Wayne Self was top 10 most of the race, getting in the 10th spot there. Zane Smith getting back some of the points that were lost after that ridiculous lug nut situation in Las Vegas, finishing in the 5th spot that time around. But Corey Heim getting his first win, despite the call at the end of the race where the last-minute pass was not covered appropriately there. But congratulations to him. I know it's a KBM injury and probably expected to pull off the victory there, but first win for anybody is exciting, so good for him and good to see there. But yes, that completed with Deegan's last place run with the bizarre situation there at the start of that race. That was your first time last place finishers for all 3 races this weekend. Still waiting to hear on technical inspection. I'm seeing a lot of comments on here at the same time. Let's see here. Where is... Oh, yes, I want to offer a correction here as well. In the spirit of what was discussion here earlier, I could swear I heard Jeff Gordon say that he was describing the old Atlanta as kind of boring when he was talking to Darrell Waltrip and saying wait till the first few laps. And I guess that was... that seems like I was incorrect about that, so I do apologize for the confusion on that. I could swear it sounded like that, he was kind of talking down the track in that discussion there. But I guess that was some confirmation bias on my end there. But it sounds like that was the case. I'm seeing some comments on this here as well. How excited he was at. Yeah, I caught that. Okay, I am seeing a comment here, though. It says, yeah, he was saying how excited he was to do Atlanta because it was fun from his seat, and DW told him that wasn't the case from the booth. Okay, yeah, I need to listen to the quote again. If I was correct on that, I'm not sure, but I'm going to have to look that up. But yeah, one way or the other, though, I still thought Gordon was good in the booth. I think that there was that situation there at the same time. Let's see. Oh, okay, there we go. Oh, I saw this on a comment here earlier. Definitely thank you for those of you who've checked out NASCAR Man's latest video on the ASA series that I did the narration for here this week. Yeah, I really enjoyed being able to do the narrations on that. I thought that was really an interesting story there that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. Let's see here. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just seeing a couple of comments on this. But yeah, jumping back into the video there on the ASA series, that's something I kind of remembered as a kid watching in TNN's kind of later years. I guess it was Rick Benjamin in the booth there talking about Gary St. Amant and some of those other competitors, but realizing how many competitors, even people that are still active today, have had their roots in the ASA series and what it may mean now that NASCAR has apparently bought up some of the rights to the old branding. We'll see what happens with that coming up later this year or whenever, I would assume. I don't really have any additional information beyond that, but I thought that was a fascinating script. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to that one too. Those of you, of course, following my content here and don't mind me prattling on about a different time in the sport, I do have a couple of projects I'm working on here. Still need to get the interview for my next individual driver profile and the Stanton Barrett one. While that's been taking a while, I've already get started on another video that shouldn't need interviews, and I'm hoping that at the worst case scenario, if it takes longer to get those two done, I can get this one done in the meantime. This one will be interesting. It's kind of looking at more of a silly season from a particular time and kind of analyzing that a bit closer. That's going to be kind of giving a little bit too much away at this point, but I mean, that's going to be kind of what I'm looking at here, kind of about driver and team swaps. That's going to be kind of a focus of it. But that'll be an interesting one to certainly talk about here. I don't think it's going to need interviews for it because it's going to be much more on the details there. But we'll have some more information on that coming up. Also, with the J.D. McDuffie book, we're very close to getting that book republished. I just re-uploaded a new version of the script to Amazon last night. Unfortunately, we had a error in getting it uploaded, so I have to get it fixed through the editor here again. But he's been doing a great job with it there. I think we're down to just small tweaks here to get it finally fixed. And then at that point, once it's up, it'll be available again at that point. I do believe the ebook has been updated to go with the audiobook, so that'll still be there. So those of you who are still interested in the J.D. McDuffie book, you'll be able to pick up that very soon. I'm still aiming for it to be sometime this month, even though now we're down to, I guess, the last week and a half of this month. I still think that's going to be very possible. So stay tuned to my Twitter on that as well. Jason Toth, I saw your comment. Is inspection complete? I'm not seeing my tweets completely blow up here, but maybe we'll have that already. Yes, 6 minutes ago. Thank you for the heads up here. Bob Pockris tweeted, Cup Tech complete, no issues. Byron is the winner. The Keselowski and Elliott cars are going back to R&D for them to take a deeper look. No penalties will come from that. So yes, confirming that, yes, indeed, we had a weekend of first-time last-place finishers. And so Noah Gragson will have his first last-place article on the Cup side. Not his first in the top 3 series. He had, I believe, 3 in the Xfinity series. Coming into this. So that'll be the feature for tonight. So yes, thank you for the heads up on that as well. We'll do a couple trivia questions here to wrap up the show for this evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I saw we had over 100 people here at the start. And I guess we had a lot of people from the Twitter feed jumping in here. So I do appreciate you tuning in. We're down to 84 here, but I appreciate you guys tuning in on this. We'll certainly do some questions here to wrap things up. If you have any other questions from this weekend or in general that I haven't covered or anything else you're curious about, go ahead and mention those in the comments. Don't be shy, and we'll do some discussions from here. Let me pick the categories again. Dude, oh, hang on. Make sure the buttons are working. All right. Okay. So again, the categories on our old 1990s Trivial Pursuit NASCAR thing are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card categories. Again, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So go ahead and pick up whichever category you'd like on that. So that'll be a different one to look at. How about Jack Wood with a good run after a couple of issues with tires going down? Burkalk, yep, I'm sorry, Burkalk 47. Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be another one to talk about there too. It's good to see, especially after giving him the last car certificate last year at Phoenix. I'm glad to see him do better. This is the same thing I told Rick Ware back at the Clash. It's like, I love seeing these teams do better. I don't want them to always be in last place. That would be boring. Just like having a driver that's always winning all the time. It's the same thing on this end. Not sure if that came across, but you know, it was intended to. Need to replenish the Mountain Dew Code Red this week. All right, we got a good spread so far. We got a couple for the wild card. The SJP, yeah, talking about networks that, yeah, lasted 21 years. That's possible. It's possible. I am getting flashbacks to when ESPN ended. You know, it seemed like they were always there, but they were only there for 2 decades. You know, nothing lasts forever in that sense, but, you know, who knows? Who knows? But I don't know. It's there's got to be some kind of improvement. I'm glad the Cup broadcasts are still better. You know, even in my first episodes, like doing the broadcast comparisons, it was hard to pull too much from the Daytona 500 in comparison to the Xfinity and the truck races. So again, I'm not going to be unreasonable. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, everything stinks. No, that's not going to help anybody. I try to be as constructive as I can. Yes, even with that tweet the other day, it was, you know, it was absolutely reaching critical mass yesterday, and I'm probably going to get a little more irritated again. Look at those clips this week, but we'll find out. But again, hopefully I can make something constructive out of it, and that'll be good to see. All right, let's see. I see 3 for wild card and drivers, 2 for NASCAR, 1 for pits and teams. Thank you, Beast of Metal. So yeah, we're getting that. Yeah, we'll keep polls open here for a minute here. Let me check out this. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, Beast of Metal, I saw your comment. Yeah, Gordon said Waltrip, said it from, was not happy about watching the track from the booth, which itself is a distressing attitude. I was curious. Okay, that's kind of the way I felt that the quote came across. I was, okay. A lot of people were kind of telling me I was wrong about that one there. Maybe I wasn't incorrect about that. Because that's sort of what it sounded like. It's like, yeah, just wait till you get the booth. It's like it's gonna, you know, it's like, come on. I think the I think this, it kind of reminds me of why they changed the qualifying format. That like Darrell Waltrip was like kind of boring and restless. Like, I don't want to just see one car go around the track. This stinks. Let's have group qualifying. Let's have everybody rush out at once with 5 seconds to go on the clock and try to beat each other to the stripe. It's stupid. It's still like that now, where even when they get qualifying back, they're not going to run single qualifying laps, do the same format. At least not at all the tracks. I mean, they should bring it back at the road courses. I don't like this group qualifying stuff. I think it's stupid. I think it's especially at road courses. Road course qualifying is some of the most exciting stuff to watch. Look at Watkins Glen qualifying from like 2003 or 1998. There's like some really good ones on YouTube. Or the stuff at Sears Point. Those are always lots of fun. Drivers seems to be the leader. Okay. I think it'll be kind of that one there. 5 votes for drivers. Okay, we're going to go at 6 for drivers. All right, that's good enough. We'll close the poll here, and we'll do some drivers questions for you guys here. All righty. Okay, here we go. First question. Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded? Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded? Should do qualifying on pogo sticks, Austin. Well, there you go. Y'all still going? Yep, we're still going. We're still going. We're going all the way. 72 viewers still in here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I hope you have enjoyed it for sure. How much did we talk about? We talked about everything. Everything, Death Killer. Whoop, got a Chihuahua fight outside the door there. I'm sure I'll be breaking that up in a little bit. Where did Curtis Turner win his first race once his racing ban was rescinded? We got guests for Darlington and Charlotte and Rockingham and Atlanta and Riverside. And here we go. The answer is Rockingham. Rockingham is indeed the correct answer. And Charles Peterson, I think you were the first one on that one, so kudos. Alrighty. Next question in the drivers category. What famous driver's triple flip was the first wreck at the first NASCAR event? Ooh, here we go. Famous crashes. Well, this is appropriate. What famous driver's triple flip was the first wreck at the first NASCAR event? I notice I squint too much on this. I was rewatching one of these videos the other day, and I just look like I got the light going, and I think that lights this up nicely. And it's about arm's length away from me, so it's not too bad. But I could try to do this and just look startled the entire time, but I don't know if that's going to work. What famous driver's triple flip was the first wreck at the first NASCAR event? So we're looking for a driver name here. All right, we got guesses for Lee Petty. Jim something or other. I don't know, maybe close. Curtis, we got that. I mean, let's see. I'll read it one more time here for the folks here. What famous driver's triple flip was the first NASCAR wreck at the first NASCAR event? Tim Flock, Pascal, Derpington. Having fun now. All right, here we go. Answer is Lee Petty. Lee Petty is the correct answer. All right, next question. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver won 20 poles in a single season in 1969? What NASCAR Winston Cup driver won 20 poles in a single season in 1969? All right, we got Jim Roper. We got, okay, I think this is, oh, okay. Let's wait for the new answers to come in. It's tricky when it's two, well, of course, it's driver question, so it's going to be driver names. All right, here we go. You got some more answers coming in. Richard Petty, Bobby Isaac. Let's see. Any other guesses here? You got Pascal. You got all these. Was Pascal the one you were thinking of, Beast Metal? There you go. You're close to it. But there you go. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver won 20 poles in a single season in 1969? The answer is Bobby Isaac. Bobby Isaac is the correct answer. Bobby Isaac is the correct answer. Martin Henderson, I think you were the first one to that. Oh, Death Killer, there you go. You got it. But looks like Martin was the first one on that. Here, hang on, folks. I'm going to try something right quick here. Just one moment. Somebody was making some noise. Oh, no. Here we go. There we go. Now you're going to have to sit down. Oh, he's going to try to eat my nose. He's going to try to eat my nose. He's going to try to eat my nose. Got to break up the dogfight, exactly. We'll take one of the combatants out. This is, of course, Badger, that we brought on the show, I think, once before. Are you? Oh, there's a boy. There's a boy. We have to bring out more dog shows. I probably should have loaded. Loaded the loading screens. You have to see me stumble out of this chair here, but I was hoping I'd be able to do it a little bit smoother than that. Here we go. Come on. Come on, buddy. There you go. Oh. He wants at the mic. There you go. Oh. Come on. There you go. You like the light? You like the light? Is it too much? Oh, too much light. Oh, here. Probably can't see with the microphone there. There you go. So there we go. Oh, is it the winner? Did I have? Let's see. Did I read off the question? Yeah, Bobby Isaac was the correct answer to the last question, if I didn't make that clear earlier. You're like the NASCAR version of the hockey guy. I don't know who that is, but I hope that I hope that's okay for you guys. Does he have to break up dogfights too with Chihuahuas? I don't know. Alrighty, there we go. There you go. There you go. Here we go. You want another question? How about this one, Badger? Here we go. Next question from the driver category. Whoop. Come on. Yep. Whoop. Here you go. You're good. What driver extended his winless streak at the Daytona 500 to 31 in 1998? Oh, hang on. There you go. There's a boy. There's a boy. He's like cats at rabbits while filming his videos to stop them from eating or clawing things he doesn't want destroyed. Yeah, that would probably be pretty accurate. Here we go. What driver extended his winless streak at the Daytona 500 to 31 in 1998? How you doing, boy? How you doing? This is the very definition of a lapdog here. He will just run everywhere, but then when he gets to a certain time of day, probably about now, he will be just perfectly content to just he'll usually like just lay right up against you. I don't know if he's gonna do that here, but yeah. Oh, probably with the mic cord will make it a little tricky. Oh, there you go. There you go. There's the good spot. There's the good spot. Oh, you gonna give me the look? You give me the look, huh? There you go. Alrighty. What driver extended his winless streak at the Daytona 500 to 31 in 1998? The answer is Dave Marcus. It is indeed Dave Marcus. Driving the 71, absolutely. Some of the best paint schemes were run with the Team Realtree logos on there. Badger knows about that too. There you go. I don't know if I gave a proper shout out to Harris Liu for the design here on the Liquid Death shirt, but definitely give a shout out to him on that as well. I thought I was I was commenting on it online. I didn't even see that it was a hearse at first, and then like he said like this is the last car you'll ever need. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna need one of those. I'm gonna need one of those shirts. I was already on the fence before, and that put it over. So yeah. All right. How about we'll do one more question here for tonight, then we'll probably wrap up here for this evening, and we'll do that. All righty. Let's see here. Here we go. Here we go. Who was the first NASCAR Winston Cup driver to test at Suzuka Circuit Land? Who was the first NASCAR Winston Cup driver to test at Suzuka Circuit Land? It's our last question for the evening. Oh, there you go. There you go. Badger. You're very photogenic, Badger. You're very photogenic. There you go. I think last little guy we brought in here, he didn't want to sit for too long. There you go. Uh-oh, he really wants this cable. I can tell. He's going to probably jump on that a little bit. We'll see how that shakes out. Let me read the question again. Who was the first NASCAR Winston Cup driver to test at Suzuka Circuit Land? The first Winston Cup driver to test at Suzuka Circuit Land. That was me. Yep, every line of the video. I appreciate it. I'm glad you like that video, Death Killer. I like that one too. I've thought about maybe even remaking it because there's probably even more stuff in there. But the problem is some of those facts that are in there are, like Denny Hamlin got his back-to-back Daytona 500. So it's probably best to just leave well enough alone on that. But I did enjoy putting that one together. I think that was probably the one that kind of reinvigorated this channel here a little bit on that. So that was fun to put together. Who is the first NASCAR Winston Cup driver to test at Suzuka Circuit Land? Here comes the answer. The answer is indeed the man in black, Dale Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt is the correct answer. Charles Peterson Jr., Austin Foster, I think you were just ahead of him on that. So, yeah, let's see, Beast of Metal, you guessed Dale Jr., you were very close. And Turbo 14, you guessed Skinner, you were also extremely close. So you get the same team. What is it, Badger? What is it? Give me that look. You're going to give me that look again? Alrighty. Well, let me tell you here, ladies and gentlemen, that's the show for this evening. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, it was a little bit of everything this weekend here. But yeah, I think, really, again, to kind of put a pin in the stuff from the Twitter feed this past week here, there's, again, there's some things that are just always going to be things that I'm just going to be carping about on there. And I don't think I'm too different from other Twitter accounts in that sense. I try to keep it to a minimum as possible and give as much latitude to things. And there's been no shortage of changes in the sport this year. A lot of things I'm trying to just kind of roll with. But the broadcast thing, I'm afraid, the beatings will continue until morale improves. And that might be more videos. It might be more tweets. But yeah, obviously, that's not going to be the main focus of the account. As always, it's going to be on the battles for last place. But yeah, I'm not going to I'm not going to insult your guys' intelligence by backing out of an opinion just because people are disagreeing with me. Because look, I'm only going to put that out there if it's something that's really concerning. So that's going to be kind of that whole thing. So at any rate, that will do it again for today. Our next show is going to be next week after the conclusion of the activities at the Circuit of the Americas as we go road racing for the first time this season and see for the first time how the next-gen car handles turning both left and right, and if it is indeed ready for the 24 hours of Le Mans there. I didn't talk about that in the show tonight, but that is indeed very exciting. I think that's going to be, I think whether it's, a experimental entry or not, I think that's a tremendous get by NASCAR. And I think that's going to be very exciting. Whoever ends up in there, I would be very surprised if Jimmy Johnson isn't a part of that. I think that would be almost expected, but that'll be another thing to look at there too. But yeah, in the meantime, definitely check out the website, lastcar.info, the Twitter at LastCarOnBrock. And if you're interested in some bonus content or supporting the channel, definitely consider checking out patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. Very close to our next goal for doing our starting grid video. I see Badger creeping up here to the side here at the same time. So have a wonderful evening, everyone, and have a safe week. And I will see you next week. Oh, I almost hit the end stream button. Let's hit the intro one more time.